Please welcome to the stage Mikkel Bülow-Lehnsby, co-founder and chairman at Urban Partners, and Elizabeth Gonzalez, senior manager, thought leadership and community engagement at Bloomberg Live Experiences.
Okay, let's do a little bit of time traveling. Back to 2020, a little scary. Can I see a show of hands how many people in this room had to flee the city they lived in during the pandemic? Few of us. I certainly did. And I remember for a moment thinking, are cities dead? But of course they're not, and they never will be. Because in 25 years, 7 billion people will be living in cities. That's 7 out of every 10 people on the planet. And we can't keep doing more of the same. We would have to build one New York City every month between now and 2050. But we can't keep building one lonesome, carbon-spewing skyscraper at a time. Which is why the Bloomberg New Economy Dynamic Cities Coalition is on a mission with our co-chair, Urban Partners, to redefine urban development to be more holistic and sustainable. So Mikkel, tell us why the systems change is required, especially among the investor community.
Yes, thank you, Ed. And we are super proud and pleased to be part of this coalition. You know, it was, as I said, founded on the response to COVID in reality, and is obviously driven by this ambition that we need thriving, well-functioning cities, given the importance it plays for society at large, as you've just put out. And as you also put it, the cities did survive COVID. I think it's not fully as clear that cities, and not least inhabitants of the cities, will survive in the same manner unless we ensure that cities become a part of the solution of the climate challenge that we are facing, which I think we all can agree is one of the most substantial challenges facing the cities today. And allow me just to digress 1 second on that before I go and try to answer a little bit of your questions, which I hope I'll do also indirectly through this. But every time that I'm in front of sort of an esteemed audience of decision makers, I try to sort of make something very black and white, that I at least find very black and white. And that's why I travel around with these 2 very simple papers. Because I find it to be very black and white that there's a decision we need to make. And that decision is basically, what cities do we want our kids to live in 2050? For my own part, my kids will be roughly my age in 2050. And it's been very neatly outlined by the IPCC that there's this choice. It can be this city, or it can be this slightly brighter version, where our kids will be allowed to live in a similar planetary stability that we've been bestowed with. And I think that is black and white. You know, who would want, as a parent, to pass on this to your kids? And the reason why it becomes even more black and white, I make it even easier for you, is that also commercially, it's a no-brainer. So at its core, business is about solving problems. Those businesses that solve problems will always outperform those who do not in the long term. And given that the climate challenge is the biggest challenge of our generation, it must follow that it's the biggest business opportunity of our generation. And now we get into the show of hands. So it's a show of hands again. Who were in business? I'm not going to age shame you. I'll do it myself. But who was in business 20 to 25 years ago? Raise your hands. Okay. So those of you, keep them up. So those of you who were in business 20 to 25 years ago, who of you regret that you, from a purely commercial perspective, did not invest a bit more into internet, or maybe started an online book retailer? Yeah, pretty much everybody, no? And if you should simplify this, in my head at least, then the internet improved productivity of the world, essentially. The climate challenge is existential. And as price elasticity on lives is quite low, I'm convinced it will have much more commercial impact than what the internet had. So I really feel it's black and white, that I hope few of you will be sitting in 25 years with your hands up when you say, I regret I didn't invest more into the climate. And that brings me a little bit back to your question, which is, so Urban Partners, we've been around for 19 years now. We are an investment organization. We were founded on this belief that you will deliver superior returns if you solve problems. And we've just chosen to focus on the built environment. And we have now 19 years of experience and track record that I think really starts to prove that solving problems in the urban environment is not just a nice thing to do for the kids, it's also a superior investment proposition. But we've realized on this journey that there's no way we can do it alone, because we need some systemic change. We need to change how we measure some things for this to become faster and more catalytic, which is needed because we are running out of time. And that's why we are so pleased to be part of this coalition, because that's what it's all about. It's all about trying to bring together more who can help us make the changes that are needed. And that's why we are so pleased with the dashboard that's being announced today, because that is obviously an attempt to try to measure things in a slightly different way, looking a bit more holistically at things, so that we can try to fix this problem we have between the short-term financial measurements and the actual long-term benefits that you create when you do things in a way that actually benefits the whole society. So we very much hope that our work with you guys and being part of Bloomberg, who's always been on the forefront of talking for the cities, will help us both do this and deliver better returns to investors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikkel. And that's right. We are so excited to be launching today the Bloomberg New Economy Dynamic Cities Dashboard. It's going to be showing up momentarily. In order to support this multi-dimensional approach that takes into account both the physical and the social infrastructure that goes into making great cities, that goes into making dynamic cities, we argue, the kinds of cities that attract the most and the best talent in the world, in both the emerging world and in mature markets. To get there, we believe cities should strive to be fair, happy, sustainable, data-driven, innovative, and responsive. And we've identified 18 different indicators under these pillars for an initial set of 30 cities to track and make progress on. Now, we don't have time to get into the specifics now, but I do want to point out a few ways in which our dashboard is different from a lot of the indices and the rankings that you see out there today. For one, we want to capture positive change, because we don't just want to highlight the cities that are already farthest ahead. We want to be able to build on momentum and to identify positive improvements. So if we were to take a look at our sustainable pillar, for instance, and the clean energy indicator underneath it, this ranking tells us which cities have made the most progress in terms of the proportion of electricity consumption that comes from clean energy sources, so non-fossil fuel sources. Lagos is at the top because it went from 0 to 25% of its electricity consumption coming from non-fossil fuel sources, mostly from hydro. And this happened in the last 5 years. Now, I know what you're thinking. Any jump from 0 is a big jump, and you're not wrong. But I ask you, is it any less worth highlighting? We think it provides an opportunity to say, hey, what's going on there? What changed? So if we look at a different city, at London, where we are today, we see that it made a jump of about 3%, which is positive, not all that much, but that's because it's starting from a much higher floor. Nearly 50% of electricity consumption in the city comes from clean energy sources. A lot of it is wind, a lot of it is nuclear. Of course, these two cities are in very different stages of development, which is why we've taken the time to identify 6 different archetypes according to GDP per capita and population growth rate, because we believe we need to make reasonable comparisons, another way that our dashboard is different. Ultimately, what we want is to inspire city leaders to track data, to make informed decisions, and to replicate interventions that work, which is why we've also added a section for our case studies. This is one of my favorite things because we've added 2 video case studies including from 2 cities, one in Copenhagen, one in Sao Paulo, Brazil, 2 very different parts of the world, but great examples of entire whole neighborhood transformations that take into account the social and the physical component. The Urban Partners case study in Copenhagen builds an entire neighborhood that is closely tied to all 17 of the UN SDGs. In the Sao Paulo case, we have a social entrepreneur on our coalition that is transforming favelas, taking hundreds of families out of poverty. We also think it's an opportunity for investors and for businesses to identify underexplored opportunities and build momentum on positive change that is already taking place. And then city dwellers, of course, to say and demand more from their city leaders. Ask them, why isn't my city making more progress on sustainability? We invite you to explore the data at bloomberg.com, Dynamic Cities Dashboard, and then to join us off stage during the networking session and dive into why the world needs more dynamic cities. Finally, I want to thank you, Mikkel, Urban Partners, our co-chairs, our coalition members that have been with us a few years now working on this project, and of course, Bloomberg for making and turning this vision into a reality.
Thank you.